The next speaker is one of my favorites. In life, you're given brothers that you're born to and brothers that you're spiritually connected to, and this is one of mine. SAUL BLINKOFF is one of the greatest mashpiyim around the country. He is out there on the street, in communities, in college campuses, high school. This man lives and breathes the Jewish community because he's got an incredible wife who's sitting in the front row and an adorable daughter who's sitting in the front row as well, and a great family. He is an animator and a director at Disney, at DreamWorks. His story is incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, give a heartfelt welcome to Mr. SAUL BLINKOFF.
Good morning, Shavua Tov. Before I begin, I want to just take a moment and thank Rabbi Berg. I want to thank Charlie, Yossi, for inviting me and my family to be here. It's rare that I get to go a place with my family, and especially a place where there's so many friends of mine here, so many partners of Aisha Torah. It's really a thrill for us to be here. So I really want to thank all of you for being here. And I want to share a couple ideas with you. Some of you heard my talk the other night. I was 7 years old. I had a dream to become a Disney animator. I worked really hard to accomplish that, and I got rejected many times. Until finally, I achieved my dream in Orlando, working at Disney, worked on a lot of fun Disney movies. My wife and I get married. We weren't really raised religious, observant. I was conservadox, whatever label you like. We moved out to Los Angeles, and we had to find a community that we were going to live in. So I walked into a building. I never heard of Aisha Torah before. I walked into Aisha Torah Los Angeles, and it was right between Mincha and Mariv, the afternoon and evening service. And I noticed that everybody's sitting there with books open, but it didn't look like they were praying. It looked like they were reading something. So I go over to this one guy and I tap him. I said, "Excuse me." He turns around. I said, "What's everyone doing?" He turns around and says, "Learning," and turns back again. So I tap him again. I said, "Excuse me, what are you learning?" He turns around and says, "Torah," and turns back around again. You see, this guy obviously did not want to be bothered, but he doesn't know who he's up against. Because as I always tell my kids, when there is something you want in your life, you will do anything to get it. Years earlier, when I was in Israel on a program called Israelite with two rabbis, Rabbi David Aaron, Rabbi Benny Friedman, I was learning about Judaism. I was inspired. I was in classes, amazing. I was in classes called What is the Meaning of Life? Think of all the classes you've taken in your life. I say this to undergrad students all the time. Chemistry, math, biology, law school. How many people have been in a class entitled, What is the Purpose of Life? I was inspired. I was in Israel for 10 days on this program, inspired every day. One night I'm walking with a couple of my buddies. We're going to Ben Yehuda Street. We're walking to a bar called Mike's Place. Anyone know Mike's Place? Yeah. I'm sure more of you do also. You're not admitting it. I walk over to Mike's Place with my friends. We're walking over there. I'm a single guy. There's single girls there. That's what you do. So as I walk with my buddies down Ben Yehuda Street, I look in the corner and I see these two ultra-religious guys with these big Gemaras open. They had the Streimels and the whole thing. And I said to my buddies, "Guys, look what they're doing." They're like, "Yeah, they look funny, don't they?" I'm like, no, look what they're doing. They're like, "What are they doing?" I said, "They're learning Torah. We should go over and learn with them." My buddies are like, "We're going to Mike's Place to meet girls." If that's where you want to go, Blinkoff, good luck. They gave me a look like I was nuts. And you know what? I didn't care. Do you know what I did? I walked over to that table. I walked over to those religious guys and said, "Excuse me, I'd like to learn Torah with you." They gave me a look like I was crazier than my friends. And you know what? I didn't care. Because when there's something you want in your life, you will do anything to get it. Years later, when I'm in Los Angeles, and I tapped that guy, and I said, "Excuse me, what's everyone doing?" "Learning." Turns around, "What are you learning?" "Torah." I tapped him again, and I said, "So teach me." So he did. Every Friday night at his home. His name is Rabbi Shalom Denbo. Everyone know Rabbi Denbo? Yeah. He sat with me and invested his time. We started learning together. Friday night, I called it the trifecta. We had Coca-Cola in a glass bottle, his wife's homemade chocolate chip cookies, and this green book right here, the Mesilat Yesharim. If you're Ashkenaz, the Mesilat Yesharim. The Path of the Just, an unbelievable book written in the 1700s by Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto. If you take the first letter of his names, Rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, he was simply known as the Ramchal, What a cool name to be called a rom-com. We live in LA, Beverly Hills. People have Lamborghinis with the vanity plates. I always say to my wife, if we ever get a car like that, which we're not, but if we ever get a car like that, wouldn't it be awesome to get that license plate that says rom-com? And my wife quickly responds, honey, you're not the rom-com. She grounds me pretty quickly to reality. The Ramchal wrote this book in the 1700s. What does he know about what we're going through today? You read an iPhone manual from 5 years ago, everything's changed. The click button doesn't do that. There's no more home button. In the 1700s, he knew what we were going through today. This should be an annotated book. But you know what? This book is not the Ramchal telling us what he thinks about life. He's telling us what Torah is telling us about life. And Torah is for all times. He doesn't go a page in this book without referencing something in Torah. That's the Ramchal, teaching us tools for living. Torah is not a history book. It's an instruction manual for living. This book right here, it's a bestseller. You should all have one. You should all have one by now. It's a bestseller. We read this book constantly. Anyone ever read Harry Potter more than 2 times, the first book? Are you serious? 8 times each? Yeah, how about you? She read all the series. Did you ever want to tell your daughter, honey, there's other books out there, you know? Your friend is reading the same book 20 times, 30 times. There's other books out there. And yet, you know what we do? We read it again and again and again. Simchas Torah, we read it, we celebrate it, and we start it again because all of life is in this book. When we read the Ramchal's words, he's speaking to us today. You open up the Gemara, it says, Rabbi Akiva says. What do you mean Rabbi Akiva says? He's dead. It should say Rabbi Akiva said. No, you don't get it. When you learn Torah, they're whispering into our ears right now. And if you've learned this book before, did you learn it today? And even if you learned it this morning, did you learn it right now? We're changing. We evolve. We need to hear it over and over again. For the next couple of minutes, I'd like to share with you just the first line of this book. Share with you some of the impact it had on my life. The Ramchal says, the first line, Yesod HaChasidus v'shoresh ha'avoda ha'tamima. The first word he says is Yesod, foundation. You want to build something in life? You need to have a foundation. You want to build a building? You need to have a foundation. Relationships? You need to have a foundation. Years ago, my wife and I knew a couple. We thought they'd be good to get married, to go dating. They would be great together. We set them up, and after about a month, they were the worst couple you've ever seen. They argued all the time about little things, like really little things. They argued all the time. They did not have what I would call a good foundation. And rather than deal with that foundation, you know what they did? They decided to get married. Yeah, good luck. Because marriage has other challenges. And rather than deal with those challenges, they decided to fix that by having children. And today that couple is happily divorced. And when you found out that that couple got divorced, it wasn't a surprise. You're like, what took them so long? They didn't have a foundation. So what does Judaism say is the right foundation? Imagine 2 people go on a date. Sitting across from someone on a date, I take out my iPhone. I say to her, what do you see in front of you? She says, I see a shape. I say, wow, this is amazing. I also see a shape. Date number 2, she says, I like how there's like curves around the edges of it. I'm like, wow, the last girl I dated didn't see that. This could be the one. In this world where everyone's aliens and no one sees the world like me, I finally found someone that sees the curves around the iPhone. And then one day you get to 6 months. I think it's the 6-month mark. If a relationship can get to the 6-month mark, good luck. Because at 6 months, you know what happens? You're on that date, and she says, you know what I love about it? I love how it's all white, and it has a little Apple logo. And I look at her and I go, what are you talking about? There's a black screen there that you can touch and light up, and you get into your first fight. Because you know what you're trying to do? You're trying to convince the other person that they're wrong. And you know what? They are wrong. Because at the end of the day, the only perspective I ever have in my own self is my own life is my own. I only have my own perspective. I can't see someone else. But what we do is when we start to get close to someone, fall in love with someone, become best friends with someone, we start to think that they're going to see the world exactly like me. That's not a foundation. What does Torah tell us? You open up this book. Again, if you don't have one, you should pick one up. Here's what the creator of the world tells us about life. He says this, Hashem said it is not good that man be alone, period. The creator of the world is telling us, don't go through life alone. You want to go through life? You better find someone to be with you. For what? To build a building? To have a business? He just said it's not good for a man to be alone. He continues and he says, so I will make him an Ezer Kenegdo. There's two secret words to relationships. Don't look to Hollywood to figure out about relationships. They don't get married in Hollywood, by the way. They try out marriage, you know. It doesn't last very long. They try it out, they get another one. It's like a new restaurant opens up for them. God says it is not good that man be alone, so I will create for him an Ezer Kenegdo. Simply translated, a helpmate that goes against him. The Creator is telling us if you want to grow, you're going to need someone who's going to help you by going against you at times. A helpmate to go against you. So the Creator of the world tells Adam, this is who you should have. This is who your soulmate should be. You know what the next line of the Torah should be? God should say, you need an Ezer Kenegdo. Here's your wife. Here's Eve. But that's not what happens. Instead, God says to Adam, you know what? I want you to go name the animals. Adam's walking through the garden. He's like, what do you mean? God's like, yeah, I want you to go name the animals. So Adam goes to the garden. He said, you're going to be called a lizard. You're going to be called an elephant. He starts putting them together. Oh, these two go together. These two go together. The Torah continues and says, but for Adam, he did not find for himself an Ezer Kenegdo. You know what that means? It means he was looking for an Ezer Kenegdo. You know why God didn't give it to him? Because he wouldn't appreciate it. Years ago, my family was living in Dublin, Ireland. I was directing a Disney show called Doc McStuffins. Anyone know that show? Anyone know? Yeah, you know the show Doc McStuffins? We were there for a year. It was an amazing experience just to get out of LA and go live in Dublin. There's a great Jewish community there. First week we're there, we're walking through the community just to go explore. We're about to leave our house and go out there. It's a little cold. And my wife and my daughter got into a little argument. They're fighting because my oldest daughter didn't want to take her jacket. You ever have that argument with your kids? Yeah, they don't have that argument in LA. Different arguments, always an argument. And my wife and her are arguing, and I can say my wife is losing it a little bit, getting a little upset, and we do what's called the handoff. I tap my wife and go, handoff. She walks away, I come in. Sometimes I hand off to her. And I go over to my daughter and say, honey, what's the problem? She's like, Dad, I don't want to take my jacket. I'm like, you know what, don't take your jacket. My wife's giving me a look like, what are you doing? I'm like, honey, trust me, I got this. Honey, don't take your jacket. Go outside for a minute, wait there for a couple minutes. We're going to get some stuff together, we'll meet you outside. My daughter goes outside, closes the door. 1, 2, 3, door open, hand comes in, jacket taken. You know why? Because she experienced cold. To appreciate something, we have to first understand why we need it. You know why God doesn't come by and say, Adam, here's your wife? Because that's your dad telling you what to do. God's like, I'm telling you what to do, but only when you go through the garden and you see that everyone has someone and you're alone and you really feel lonely, then you'll appreciate having a wife. Now go back to the date. You're on that date, 6 months, and I say to her, what do you see? And she says, I see that white screen, that white thing with the Apple logo. And I say, I see a screen that's lit up. And you know what trust is? Trust is that you understand that that perspective is true. And if you trust that person, you get a 3-dimensional perspective on something that you would never get. You have to trust that perspective. That's what real trust is. Rabbi Benny Friedman, rabbi that really macared me way early on, said to me an amazing story. Every year he would go to New York to go travel, to speak in New York for a week, then he would come home to a frat. He dreamed about one thing, putting the key in the door when he would get home and hear the pitter-patter of those little feet running to the door. And I can tell you as a dad that travels a lot, I know what it's like to miss your kids for 2 days, 5 days. And every day he was in New York, he would count down the days. 4 days, 3 days from now, I'm going to put the key in the door, I'm going to hear the pitter-patter of those little feet. And sure enough, it's the day he's actually getting on the plane. He flies back to Israel, gets into the cab, goes to the hills of Efrat. It's real now. He takes the key, puts it into the door. He hears the pitter-patter of those little feet running. And right before he opens the door, his wife screams from inside, "Don't open the door!" Now, what would 90% of all men do? Yeah, they'd open the door. And if they didn't open the door, what would they say? Why not? Yeah, I always like how the women answer that. You understand men? They'd say, why not? Because you know what why not means? Honey, why don't you tell me why I shouldn't open the door? And if I think it's a good reason not to open the door, I won't open the door. You know what why not means? I don't trust my wife. Benny said that he knew how much his wife knew how much he wanted to come in, and that if she told him not to open the door, it must be in his best interest not to open the door. And you know what he did? He didn't open the door. He found out later one of his kids had thrown up right in front of the door. His wife was cleaning it up. Later, he went in. Trust is, do I really trust the perspective of another person? It's not just do I trust it, do I need it? When God said it's not good for us to be alone, he's telling us you need to have another person's perspective. But on what? On movies? Oh, honey, what'd you think of that movie? Oh, I didn't see that in the movie. Wow, now I understand that movie better. Oh, honey, what'd you think of the Italian restaurant we went to the other day? Oh, I didn't taste the garlic. Wow, now I understand pasta? Really? We need one other person's perspective on one thing, us. Because at the end of the day, if I'm really going to grow and I'm going to be real with myself, I need another person's perspective who's going to help me by going against me. Sometimes my wife's going to tell me, you know what, I'm proud of you. You did the right thing there. Sometimes my wife's going to tell me, you know what, you need to be a little more humble. Think about your Facebook friends. Think about like the rings of a tree. Facebook friends, acquaintances, they're all the way out there on the rings. Hopefully, there's somebody in your life who can tell you something that's real. One of your Facebook friends that you don't even know, you didn't even know you were friends, they text you and they're like, you know what, you need to act more humble. You're like, I don't even know you. Get away from me. I'm not even going to listen to you. But if you go closer to those rings of the tree, your inner circle of people, God's like, you can't go through life alone. You need someone else's perspective. That's a foundation. That's trust. Benny told another story about this guy who has to get divorced from his wife. And Benny's like, you got to get divorced from your wife? The guy's like, yeah, I'm not in love with my wife anymore. The rabbi's like, that's it? He's like, what do you mean that's it? It's kind of a big reason. The rabbi's like, you don't have to get divorced from your wife. The guy's like, what do you mean? I told you I don't love my wife. But he says, if you don't love your wife, then love your wife. The Hebrew word for love is ahava. The root of that word is hav. Simply means to give. If you don't love your wife, then give to your wife. You know what they tell you in the secular world? Love is how you feel as a result of someone else. Someone else will make you feel something. Judaism says, no, no, no. Love is who you choose to give to. Reb Noach Weinberg defined love beautifully. He said, love is to identify and appreciate the positive attributes of something. You could love anything. Identify and appreciate the positive attributes. I love Coca-Cola. Love it in a glass bottle. I could literally make you a list of everything I love about it. I love the Mean Joe Green commercial from the 70s. Remember that? The nostalgia, like this big football player after a game, he loses, and this little boy says, hey, Joe, and he throws him a Coke, and he opens it up, and the sun is glinting through, and he drinks that thing, the whole thing in one gulp. It takes me back to my childhood. I love the pictures in the Depression. You'd see a family in front of this shack. They haven't eaten in a week. There's no shoes. They have mud all over their faces, but they're holding a Coke. Number one product of all time. I love it. Does that mean there's things I don't love about it? Yeah, there's things I don't love about it. How about this? High fructose corn syrup. Or in Mexico, sugar. You don't love that about it. It costs money to buy Coke. Not a lot, but it adds up over the years. But I love Coke because the list of the things I love is this long. The list of the things I don't love, there's a couple. You know what Judaism tells us? Love is a choice. Picture a person in your life right now that you love. Your spouse, your child. You can make a list of everything you love about them. You know what they tell you in the secular world? Love is blind. You know what Judaism says? Love is a magnifying glass. When you love someone, you see everything, the positive and the negative. But what Reb Noach Weinberg said was to identify and appreciate the positive attributes of something. When I was falling in love with my wife, I remember she was absolutely the most outgoing person I'd ever met in my life. And we walked down the street, and she knew everybody in the Upper West Side, everybody. You couldn't walk a corner without her knowing, and I was like, wow, to my friends, she knows everybody. She's so outgoing. Now, 17 years later, we're married. Honey, do you have to stop and talk to everyone? Honey, please, I'm begging you, just walk and look down the whole time. You know what I've chosen to do? Take that positive thing, move it to the other column. I moved it to the negatives. Some people do that. Every year they're married, they take another positive until one day you wake up and the negatives are this long and the positives, it's that long. And you get divorced. Love, says Judaism, it's a choice. Continuing in this book, the Ramchal says, Yesod HaChasidus V'shoresh ha'avoda ha'tamima. He says the foundation of what life is about, sheyizbarer, to clarify, clarity. Reb Noach Weinberg said it beautifully. He said, clarity or death. Clarity is more important than health. You could be living a beautiful life and no clarity, and you're aimlessly on an ocean, just lost. But you could be on your deathbed and have clarity that you know what life is about. It's more important than anything. Clarity. Clarity is, what do I want? We don't know who someone is if we don't know what it is that they want. If you look at Disney movies, I've worked on many Disney movies, Pocahontas, Hunchback, Mulan, Tarzan. All those years I would sit in conference rooms and we'd be talking about story, and we'd literally have these huge charts that would say, what does this character want? because you don't know who a character is if you don't know what they want. I say that to singles all the time. When you're going on a date with someone, ask them a question. What do you want out of life? Find out what they want. Clarity, though, exists up here. Now comes the hard part. The Ramchal says, Sheyizbarer v'yis ames. Clarity, that's one thing. But emes, truth, you got to make it real, to live it. How many times do I get a call from a person and they say, my dream is to do a voice in a Disney movie. It happens literally once a month. I go, oh, really? That's your dream, to do a voice in a Disney movie? Did you ever do anything to make that happen? They're like, no, I don't know how to do that. I'm like, oh, you never heard of a thing called Google? Where you literally type, how do you do a voice in a Disney movie? Oh, yeah, I guess I could have. Yeah, you could have done that. And if you type that in, you know what you'll find out? That you need to go through a voiceover demo. You need to get a voiceover demo to send it in. They're like, well, I don't know how to produce that. Okay, go to Google again and type in, where do I get a voiceover? Oh, it's around the block from where I live. Look at that. A little bit of effort. Clarity. At my wedding, when I stood under the chuppah with my wife, there's a little animated bird on my shoulder, you know, like from a Disney movie, like Snow White, right? Little bird on my wife's shoulder. Everything was beautiful, glitter, colorful, the end of a Disney movie. When I said I love you to my wife, every time I said it, a burst of fresh pixie dust all around us. Now, 17 years later, she tells me, honey, can you go to Ralph's, the local supermarket, and go back and get something else for Shabbos? I'm driving to Ralph's. I'm like, I was just there twice today. I'm leaving Ralph's again, and her name comes up. And I'm like, I can't pick that up. But I'm like, okay, I'll pick it up. It's my wife. Got to pick up for your wife. So I pick it up, and she's like, honey, can you do this? I'm like, oh, okay, I'll do that. I'll get that. Okay, fine. And I'm saying to her, listen, okay, I'll do that. Honey, listen, I love you. And I hang up. You know what I love you means? I love you means, can I hang up on you so you won't be upset at me? What is the one thing I can say to my wife right now that would allow me to literally hang up? Oh, I'll use that line I used under the chuppah with the pixie dust. Can you imagine if I picked up the phone and I said, honey, listen, before you give me that list, I got to tell you something. I love you. Wow, same 3 words, different part of the conversation. Clarity, that's one thing. Next part, do I make it real? Do I live with it? The Ramchal continues. He says the foundation of what life is about is to get clarity. Sheyizbarer v'yis ames. And to make real one thing in life. Ma chavaso bi'olamo. What is a person responsible for in his or her world? You know what they tell you in the secular world? What they tell you in Hollywood? Wake up and do whatever feels good. Whatever you feel like doing. That's what 2-year-olds do. When you grow up, we don't wake up and say, what is it that I feel like doing? We say, what is it that I'm responsible to do? Remember the movie Lion King? Anyone not see The Lion King? There's always like one person. Anyone not see The Lion King? Yeah? You? Come here. Stand up. I want them to see. Are you surprised? All right, have a seat. You've heard about it? Okay. So I don't want to ruin the movie. Actually, you know what? You deserve to have the movie ruined. Spoiler alert, you're getting the ending in this, but you're going to find out everything right now. In The Lion King, little Simba sings about what he wants. What does he want? I just can't wait to be king. Oh, we know what he wants in life. You know who he is because you know what he wants. Because what does he think being a king is? He says it to his dad when he's growing up. He thinks, being a king, I can do whatever I want. And Mufasa, his father, says, Simba, there's more to being a king than getting your way all the time. Simba's like, there's more? He thinks being a king means you can do whatever you want. And all of a sudden, something happens to dad. Do you know what happens? You can guess. It's a Disney movie. There's always a dead parent, okay? Dad dies. And Simba thinks it's his fault. He goes off into Hakuna Matata world. Remember with Pumbaa and Timon? Hakuna Matata, right? What a wonderful fate. Never heard that song. You know the song. Okay, yeah. He goes off into Hakuna Matata world. You know what Hakuna Matata means? No responsibilities. Who wouldn't want that life? And sure enough, halfway in the movie, somebody shows up to see him. Who shows up? Nala, yeah, but Nala, she's not that little cub anymore, is she? She's all grown up now, isn't she? She's all beautiful. She's got the big eyelashes, right? They got their sunset in the back. They sing, can you feel the love, right? Remember? They're rolling around. There's that scene where they're about to kiss. Very inappropriate scene. I don't suggest you watch it, even with lions, okay? They're about to kiss. It's a little strange. And then after they have their little love scene, they start to talk. See, this is where Judaism is like, you may want to talk before you were rolling around, They start to talk, and she says, Simba, you should come back with me. He's like, nah, I'm good. Hakuna Matata. I live here. She's like, no, you got to come back with me. Scar's taken over everything. That's Mufasa's brother. Okay, he's actually killed Mufasa. We'll talk about that. She's like, you got to come back with me. You got to come back with me. Scar's taken over everything. He's like, no, I'm staying here. She's like, maybe I didn't make myself clear. If you don't come back with me, everyone is going to die, and you are responsible. She says those words. You know who else is there, by the way? His mother. She's going to die too. Then you know what Simba says? Hakuna Matata. She's like, how can you say that? When are you going to grow up? When are you going to be a man? Lion, you know what I mean? And you know what she is? Ezer Kenegdo. That's right, you heard it here. There's actually Torah in the movie The Lion King. She helps him by going against him. Do I love you? Yeah. She actually says the line, why won't he be the king I know he is, the king I see inside? Simba looks at her and he says, you know what? You're starting to sound like my father. She says, at least one of us does. And she leaves him. She leaves him. She takes responsibility for her people. How does she feel about him? Forget that. You got to help me change the world. And she leaves him there. He's looking at his reflection in the water, and he hears Mufasa's voice, remember who you are. You remember? Simba goes back. He beats Scar. It's a Disney movie. They all end happy. He beats Scar, and he climbs up that rock, and we watched that movie, and that movie became the biggest animated movie of all time. Not because we like movies about lions. Because when we watch that movie and you see him climb up that rock, that's all of us. We all want that kind of greatness in our own lives, to take responsibility. There's another story I love of an amazing man named Emile Zola. I'm sure many of you have heard about him. It was during the Alfred Dreyfus affair. Alfred Dreyfus was in the French army, wrongly accused of anti-Semitism, wrongly accused of treason. It was anti-Semitism. They put him in Shawshank Redemption, like Devil's Island, the worst prison. Never going to see his wife and a 6-year-old kid again. His wife goes to everybody, can you help my husband? Can you help my husband? One day she shows up. They made a movie, by the way, 1927, I think, called The Life and Times of Emile Zola. Won the Oscar for Best Picture. It's a black and white movie, so my kids won't watch it. It starred Paul Mooney. Amazing movie. And she shows up. His wife shows up to the door of Emile Zola, this non-Jewish writer. And she knocks at his door in the middle of the night. It's raining in the back. And he comes with his robe and his slippers and his pipe. He's like, can I help you? She's like, yeah. Can you help my husband? He's in prison for something he didn't do. He's like, I can't help you. Shuts the door. Emile Zola walks back towards his bed. His wife is standing there like this. Really? You're not going to help him? You're not going to help that guy? When are you going to be the man that I married? See, when Emile Zola was a young man, he used his gift, his talent of writing for injustice when people needed him, but it got difficult. So later on, he made $1 gajillion writing romance novels. He wrote, Daniel Steele novels or 5 Shades of Grey, It was only 5 shades back then, okay? He wrote romance novels. That's what he did. And she's like, really? You made $1 gajillion doing that? Go grow up. Go be a man. So he does. He investigates what happens, and he finds out that it's a cover-up, anti-Semitism, propaganda, and he writes a letter. What's the letter called? J'accuse. I accuse. They print it on the front page of the newspaper. He's like, I accuse this person of that, He puts his life on the line, risks his life as a writer to say there has been an injustice. He uses his ability to take responsibility for the world. And because of that letter, Dreyfus is freed. Goes back home to his wife and son. 2 weeks later, Emile Zola dies of gas asphyxiation poisoning because he left the flue open in his study. At his funeral, someone stood up there. And this is what they said about him. They didn't say, here lies a man that made $1 gajillion writing romance novels. Who cares? They said, here lies a man who changed the conscience of mankind forever. Greatness is, do I take responsibility? And what am I responsible for? Wherever I have in life, the ability to respond. A couple months ago, I was on an airplane going to speak in Boston. And when I go on an airplane on the red eye, I got to sleep because when I land, I got to be refreshed and I got to speak to a room full of college kids. And when I'm on that flight, I need the window seat. Got to have the window so I can sleep against the window. So I get to the airline and I said to them, I'm on a window seat, right? They're like, no, you're in the middle. I'm like, oh, really? Can you move me? She's like, I have only one other seat open. It's an aisle. Do you want it? I'm like, yeah, I'll take the aisle. I go towards the plane. I get on the plane and I'm walking on the plane and I see in the front row, there's this ultra-religious couple. Like one guy's here, one's there. How do I know they're religious? Because they have like 8 kids under the age of 4, right? And they're passing the babies over, and one baby's crying. The plane hasn't even taken off. No one's even on the plane yet. 2 crying babies, changing a diaper. And I'm thinking one thing, please God, let me sit away from them. As much as I would love to sit next to Jews and talk about the Jewish people, I got to sleep. I see in front of me, there's this little Latino woman. she's in row 1, and her face turns white because she knows she's sitting next to them. And her husband's like, honey, let's go. We got to get in there. And I look at me. Oh, I'm in row 23. Michael Jordan's my favorite basketball player. He wears number 23. Hashem loves me. I'm his greatest pride. I go to my seat. I'm sitting there in my seat. I take out my noise canceling, whatever, headphones, you know. Beautiful. I got my smart water because I do think you are what you drink. I'm sitting there and everything's beautiful. Plane starts filling up, and then all of a sudden I notice they close the doors. They close the doors on the plane, and not only is the middle seat next to me free, but the window is, the whole row is free. How'd that happen? The lady said there was one seat, I got the whole row. This is amazing. What a story I could tell my wife when I land. Honey, you're not going to believe this. I did this, I got to sleep the whole way. Wow, what a great flight you had. I'm like, oh yeah, I wear this, don't I? I got up before the plane took off. I went over to that couple and I said, I actually have 2 empty seats next to me if you'd like them. You never saw a little Latino woman run so fast. And you know what? The religious couple, they were grateful too, because now they could sit next to each other. Are we really going to go through life thinking, how can I get the most comfort for myself? Am I really going to go through life thinking, how can I have the easiest time possible? I'm going to go through life thinking one thing. My purpose is to take responsibility for the world. That's greatness. You know what greatness really is? It's not gold statues named Oscar. It's not rings on a finger that Michael Jordan has. It's not inventing an iPhone. Greatness is one thing. Do I work on myself to grow? Rav Yitzhak Berkowitz says a beautiful thing. He says, you know what life's about? Make a list of all of our negative attributes. And you know what? We all have them. We all have negative attributes. That's what life's about. Fix them. How am I going to do that? It's too hard. Oh, hold on. You don't have anything positive about you? Now make a list of all of our positive attributes. Those are the tools that the Creator gave us to fix it. And that is the battle, says the Ramchal, of life. But we're not given any opportunities in life that we can't actually solve. Life is about growing. How are we really going to go through it? If there was only an instruction manual to help us. Oh, there is. It's called Torah. Torah is not a history book. All it is tools for living. Torah's Chaim. I want to be a better husband. What does Torah tell me about being a better husband? I want to be a more patient dad, more patient mom. I want more meaning in my life. Tools for living. That's what it is. Because at the end of the day, who we are is God's gift to us. But who we become is our gift to the Creator. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.